Hey dude, so I almost forgot about this, but I'm doing a shark card giveaway right now on my Twitter account. I'm handing out $1.25 million to one lucky person. Now, you can use this for the Duke of Death or the RPB content, but if all of that is free for you, you can use this $1.25 million for whatever, but I still figured you guys would enjoy a shark card giveaway with new content. That'll be the link in the description. Check it out for yourself, ending in a couple days so you got some time to enter. But let's jump into the video. Hey, how's it going, guys? Mr. Boss for the win here, and in today's Grand Theft Auto 5 video, we're going to be talking about what is the best armored car in Grand Theft Auto Online. We're going to be comparing the brand new Duke of Death to the armored Kuruma, the Insurgent, and a bunch of the executive and other criminal vehicles as well. Now, if you want like a full, in-depth, super detailed comparison of these vehicles, I'll leave a link in the video that I did about 2 or 3 weeks ago in the description that goes into a whole lot of details. Today, I'm going to just try and cover the highlights and ultimately give you guys an answer to what is the best armored car or what is the best for certain situations. So let's start with the Duke of Death because it is the newest vehicle into the game, and it will also give us a baseline to compare to some of the other cars, because that's really what's important today. We've had the other armored vehicles into the game. We need to compare them to the Duke of Death and how they stack up. So let's start with price. The Duke of Death is free for me, which it will probably be for a lot of players. So that's the price I'm going to be going off of. If you're not a returning player, it's $665,000. So it's free. It can seat 2 players, which is kind of interesting, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's actually relatively quick for being in the muscle car category. According to Bruffy, it's the 9th fastest muscle car, and it also is the 9th fastest muscle car in terms of top speed. So that's actually not that bad at all, especially when you compare it to vehicles like the Insurgent and the armored Kuruma. You'll definitely see that it is much quicker than those vehicles. So speed is pretty good. As far as the visibility and bulletproof and bullet resistant goes, it's probably average. The Duke of Death can survive 1 explosive without being destroyed, which is actually better than a lot of its competition. It has some bullet resistance in terms of its armor capabilities, and it's very limiting in terms of its visibility, being able to see outside of the car, but also when you're in the inside trying to shoot out. You literally can only shoot in like a cone of direction that's straight ahead of you. You can't shoot out of the windows or out of the back, which is probably one of the biggest downfalls of the Duke of Death itself. Now let's compare it to the other armored vehicles in the game and see how it stacks up. So let's start with the armored Kuruma. For me, the Kuruma is more expensive, coming in at over $500,000 than the Duke of Death. However, if you're not a returning player, it will be cheaper than the Duke of Death. So you need to keep that in mind right there. As far as the Kuruma goes, it can seat 2 times the amount of players, giving it a big advantage over the Duke of Death, 4 versus 2. The armored Kuruma is also incredibly bullet resistant. It is probably the vehicle that has the most bullet resistance in the game. It is so hard to shoot someone on the inside that is in a Kuruma. So that's where it probably has the biggest advantage over all the other cars. However, where it has the biggest disadvantage is the fact that the Kuruma cannot survive an explosive. 1 sticky bomb, 1 RPG, 1 anything is going to utterly destroy this car. So in that category, it doesn't stack up to the Duke of Death, and it doesn't stack up to the Duke of Death either. Where it has an advantage is its capacity of players that it can carry, and also the ability to shoot out in multiple directions. Now, you can't use sticky bombs or anything like that either, just like in the Duke of Death, but what you can do is shoot from a much wider field of view rather than just straight ahead of you. So that's the Duke of Death versus the Kuruma. Now let's compare the Duke of Death versus the armored Insurgent. Also, with this test, I'm not including Pegasus vehicles because those vary so much, so I'm going to be excluding things like the technical, like the armored turreted limo and the Insurgent pickup. Those we're not going to be comparing. We're only going to be taking into account vehicles that you can bring inside of your garage. However, let's get back to the Duke of Death versus the Insurgent, and the price tag is pretty similar if you have to pay for it. Duke of Death, $665,000. Insurgent is $673,000. So again, right on par there, but for me, the Duke of Death once again is free. The Insurgent has a lot of advantages over the Duke of Death here. Number 1 is that it can seat 6 people, which is 3 times the amount of people in the Duke of Death. That's obviously a huge advantage. It can also survive 3 more explosions than the Duke of Death. It's able to take 5 RPGs or 5 sticky bombs before eventually on the 6th one blowing up. So that again gives a huge advantage to the Insurgent over the Duke of Death. It also has much greater visibility outside of the vehicle itself. You're allowed to use sticky bombs, grenades, and other weapons, whereas you're very limited inside the Duke of Death. However, it does not provide the bullet resistance that the Duke of Death does. In fact, the Insurgent is probably one of the least bulletproof vehicles in the game in terms of providing you protection inside of the car. So you're basically going to get 2 advantages in the Duke of Death that you don't have in the Insurgent. Number 1 is speed. It is much faster. And number 2 is the bullet resistance. If someone pops you in the Insurgent, you're pretty much done. There's no way to defend yourself there, as a headshot's going to take you out pretty easily. So the only other armored vehicles that we've received in the game came in executives and other criminals. And all of these vehicles, armor-wise and bullet resistance-wise, are the exact same. The only difference is the make of the car, the speed, the customization, stuff like that. So now let's compare the Duke of Death with those executives and other criminals' armored vehicles. So the Duke of Death, once again, for me is free, whereas those ENOC armored vehicles range anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000. So depending on if you paid for the Duke of Death or not, you could be right on level with those vehicles, or you could be saving roughly $600,000 or so. So let's start with the capacity. All of those executives and other criminals' vehicles, whether it's the Cognoscenti or whether it's the armored XLS or the Shafter V12, all of them can seat 4 people. So right there, it's got an advantage over the Duke of Death, where the Duke of Death can only seat 2. All of the executives and other criminals ones can seat 4. So there's your advantage right there. The executives and other criminals vehicles also have an advantage on the Duke of Death in terms of bullet resistance, as there is slight bullet resistance on the glass and the windscreen of those cars. Whereas the Duke of Death has no windows, and those side kind of shutters and the ones on the back too actually don't provide any armor resistance. It's a little misleading. In fact, the only thing it does is basically cut off your view from the side and the back. So the Duke of Death is a little misleading in that category, and the vehicles from executives and other criminals do offer much better bullet resistance. However, the executives and other criminals vehicles have the same fault as the Kuruma, as they are not able to take any explosives. 1 sticky bomb, 1 railgun, 1 RPG, and those cars are completely toast. They're absolutely done. So that's where you're going to see the advantage of the Duke of Death. And then speed is a little bit different to test because there is so many vehicles. The Duke of Death is going to be much faster than something like the armored Cognoscenti. However, it's going to be much slower than one of the fastest vehicles into the game, the armored Shafter V12. So it really just depends on which vehicle you're comparing it to. So for speed, I'm going to say it's right in the middle. It's going to be faster than some, and it's going to be slower than others. So now what we've got to do is make the ultimate comparison on which vehicle is the best, which armored car is the best. And I don't think there's one that takes home the award. There's too many advantages and too many disadvantages of each car. Rockstar have actually done a pretty good job of balancing these vehicles where one isn't supremely better than the other. They're all pretty good for their own unique and individual situations. So for example, if you know you're going to be going up against someone that uses RPGs or sticky bombs or explosives, something like the Duke of Death, or even better, the Insurgent, would probably be your best bet here, as it has the best explosive resistance. However, if you're going up against someone that is going to be using guns or using contact missions where people are going to be firing at you, something like the armored Kuruma or the executives and other criminal vehicles would be your best bet there, as they offer better bullet resistance. If you know you're going to be carrying lots of friends and cargo, then the armored Insurgent is probably your best bet, with the executives and other criminals ones and the Kuruma probably being your second best bet. This is where the Duke of Death really struggles, as it's the only armored car that can seat 2 people. So that is the disadvantage with the Duke of Death right there. And the other disadvantage with the Duke of Death is, even though it's incredibly menacing and bad to the bone, it's very limited in terms of the weapons that you can use from inside of the car. As far as your visibility goes, I mean, you can't even shoot to the left or the right or even out of the back, and it has a very misleading amount of bullet resistance. If you hit someone inside the Duke of Death, they are done. There isn't any way you'll be able to basically stop them from killing you because there's no windows, there's no bulletproof glass, and you can shoot through those rear and side shutters pretty easily. However, there's just something about the Duke of Death that you get style points for. It's so menacing, the mayhem it brings is absolutely insane, and the cool factor is pretty awesome. And one other thing I should mention in this is the speed as well is pretty cool. Now that's hard to judge too because it's faster than the Insurgent, it's faster than the Kuruma, but it could be slower than one of the executives and other criminals armored cars that you choose to bring out too. Now, one last thing I need to mention about the Duke of Death is the rally lights that are on the top of the car are incredibly bright and blinding. So this could actually be used as an advantage for this vehicle. If you're driving head on at someone, you turn those on, it's going to completely blind them. Another kind of cool secret feature of the Duke of Death that a lot of people might not utilize because they might not think that those lights actually work. Because on some vehicles they don't, some they do. Fortunately for us, the Duke of Death is one that does use those extra lights. So I did think that was pretty awesome, and it can be used as kind of like a secret weapon on this car, which I think is pretty cool, and it's another plus for this awesome vehicle. So to give you guys my final verdict on the Duke of Death and what you should use it for, you should use it if you're kind of going on this like Mad Max style run. Like if you want lots of speed, if you want to look like a boss, and you don't want to have to worry about someone popping an RPG at you and killing you instantly. That's sort of the scenario I see working for the Duke of Death, whereas all the other armored vehicles have their own purposes. Kuruma, if you want to avoid bullets, Insurgent carrying a lot of people, want to just tank grenades and stuff like that. And then the executives and other criminals ones are just kind of flyers, and you grab and drive them whenever you want, or if you just personally like them. So that right there should give you a pretty good idea at the armored vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online, what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they excel in certain situations, what they struggle in certain situations, and overall, how the Duke of Death stands up to the existing ones that we've seen in the game. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments section down below. Do you think the Duke of Death is now the new best armored car in the game? I personally don't think one vehicle takes home that award. I think it excels in a lot of things, but it has also some pretty strong disadvantages too. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments section down below. Let me know what you think there. If you guys did go on to enjoy this video though, a like rating would of course be awesome. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you are new or you like daily GTA 5 videos like this. With all the way guys, like I said, thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.